Throughout history, freethinkers have outraged the religious with their wacky ideas about the virtues of free speech, reason, and of course, eating babies. Now, God is dying, and it's time to dispose of his remains. From the pits of hell, Satan sends two puppets of the imperialist West and the Zionist Jews against God, Islam, and tiny kittens to bring you their propaganda and conspire for a new world order. This is Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment with Ali Rizvi and Armin Navabi.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi. I'm your host, and with me is your other host. My co-host is Armin Navabi. He's a founder of Atheist Republic and the author of Why There Is No God. Armin, how are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me, I guess. I'm a co-host, so you have no choice.
Kevin, I meant we're both co-hosts. Like, yes. I'm a host. I don't know. I don't know what the terminology is.
Yeah.
But we're trying to figure this out. Anyway, so the before we get to our really, really special guest that we've been looking forward to for a long time, today I just wanted to quickly talk about some technical stuff here, and that is that we've revamped our patron system. So if you go to secularjihadist.com. You'll find a way that you can support the podcast. Everybody who's supporting, thank you very much for what you're doing. It's really, really helping out. And whether you're supporting financially, whether you're sharing the links on your social media, whatever you're doing, I mean, it's fantastic. And we're really glad that the word is getting out. And we've had a pretty good experience with the previous 3 episodes that we've done. So we plan to keep that going. And so here's how it is. If you do decide to support, we have a new sort of scale for you, and for depending on how much you're willing to give, there are different rewards that you get. So there's if you go to secularjihadist.com, you'll see this in the rewards. If you decide to give $1 per creation, $1 or more, so we do about 4 episodes a month on average. So that'll just be like $4 a month for you for the entire month, and you get 4 podcasts. You will be in the Puppet of the Imperialist West program. And in that case, you get access to patron-only content that includes live video discussions with our guests. So, what you're hearing right now, you'll be able to see live video as we record it. You'll be able to interact and join into the conversation and ask questions if you'd like to. You get the link to the live video of our private patron meetings, and you get access to the video link afterwards. And there are no public links for the audio of these meetings because that will remain private. And you'll get access to join the private Facebook group from the Secular Jihadists for Muslim Enlightenment patrons. So yeah, this is that's your $1. That's quite a bit for $1. In addition to obviously all 4 podcasts of the month. Now, the next level is Mossad's Shoe. And if you don't know, Armin, did you name these? These are amazing. Mossad's Shoe. Anyway, so there's a story behind this. Who was the guy, Armin, who said that Mossad stole his shoe? There was an imam in the UK or something?
Well, I did the Puppet of the Imperial Swiss. The rest of them, Yasemin named them. Mossad. It was. They blame everything on the Jews. So it got really funny when even some guy that lost his shoe started blaming it on the Jews. So he
said, I'm missing one shoe. Who would have just stolen one shoe? And he seriously thought that it was Mossad, and this made headlines. So, that's the Mossad shoe program.
You can't find parking. Who are you going to blame? Mossad, of course.
Of course, that's who you're going to blame.
Who else would steal your parking?
Yeah, I know exactly. So so Mossad shoe. What you get is that's $5 per episode or more. For that, you can send your questions for me or for Armin to discuss in our private meetings. So we will have private meetings that are patron only that you'll have access to. And you'll get all of the previous rewards for lower tiers. Next one is, of course, Jew Lover. That is $10 or more per creation. In this, if you join this, you get to join in the live discussion and the private online meetings with me and Armin. And these episodes, again, are only going to be released to other patrons. So these are exclusive for supporters only. And plus all the previous rewards. The next, if you donate $20 or more per episode, you get a one-on-one private convo conversation with me and Armin, as well as all the previous rewards. And the next level, once now we're getting serious. Like if you want to donate $50 or more per episode, you are in the Illuminati program. And in that case, you actually get to pick the topics for our show. If you want us to do a certain topic, you get to suggest it and tell us what that topic is, and we will go ahead and we're going to organize the show according to it. And finally, if you decide to donate $100 per episode or more, we're going to have you on the show. You can be the guest on the show, or you can pick the guests for our show, certain guest suggestions that you have. So we really want to make this worthwhile. I think that, the people who actually sponsor our show out of their own will, that's very important to us, and we really appreciate that a lot. And we want to make sure we're giving something back if you are generous enough to do that. So we really appreciate it. And we hope we're actually delivering accordingly.
And we already have 2 patrons that are doing $100 per episode and 1 patron that is doing $50 per episode. So I have to go reach out to these people. These are very generous, and basically talk to them about these offers that we have for them. But you guys are amazing. I didn't think anybody would be this generous. So thank you guys for making this possible for us.
Right. And if you can't support the show, if it's really tough to support the show financially, you don't have to. Just listen to the show. We love having you as a listener. Please go out and share it with your friends. Tell your friends about it. Share it on your social media timelines, everything.
And actually, one of the best ways to help this show, if you can't if you can't support us financially, is to leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. That will really, really, really help. So that would be
exactly. Okay, so now that we're done with that stuff, I want to get to our guests, and again, very special guest, somebody I found very, very inspiring, and our guest is our guest. I'll get right to it. It's Ari Hershkowitz. Am I pronouncing it right, Ari?
Yes, and you're not the first podcast that I'm on who is asking me if they're pronouncing that name right. So you're not alone.
Well, yeah, Ari. Well, we're basically. My name is Ali, and your name is Ari. That's they're pretty similar. So the first part of it is fairly easy. So Ari Hershkowitz is actually, he was featured in the award-winning and just a harrowing but incredibly moving documentary on Netflix that's called One of Us, and it follows the story of 3 ex-Hasidic Jews. So these are people who left Hasidic Judaism, which is a very ultra-conservative...
radical Judaism. Call it what it is. Radical Judaism. Call it what it is.
Okay, radical Judaism. That's what it is. And so they... and it follows their lives in Brooklyn over a period of, I think, around 3 years. It was directed by...
3 years,
by Heidi Ewing and Rachel Grady. And it really is a fantastic documentary. And it's very emotional, and it makes you, I guess, because it happens right in New York, and some of the events in it. I mean, we're going to get into that as we talk to Ari, but it's amazing that things like this are happening in New York State.
I honestly couldn't believe, once I watched it, I couldn't believe that this is possible in New York when I watched it.
Right,
I was shocked.
It brings up a lot of questions, and we're going to get into it. So, Ari, we're going to be asking you quite a bit, but... I just wanted to kind of start with some of your own words. In your own words, can you just describe your story briefly so that we can get into the details?
Yeah, my name is Ari. I call myself a professional Wikipedia enthusiast. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, in Williamsburg, in Hasidic Williamsburg. I lived all my life in that community until I was an adult. I went to their schools, yeshivas, and read their newspapers. Basically, that's how I was raised, and it was pretty much the same for a long time. And I think around the time I was 12, I started having questions that couldn't be answered. That led me on a path of hell. I ended up being an addict and just having sort of a miserable life for a long time, and then I got out of it, and now I'm past that.
How old are you now? I mean,
I'm 20.
You're 20. So you figured this out very young. I mean, I think you were you're just an adolescent, and one thing that really impressed me, I think you were the youngest person who was featured in that documentary, and you figured out very early that you had the courage very early to start thinking differently and ask questions and really go against the grain.
It was more like guts and stupidity. It was more like I knew that this is not where I want to be. I will probably end up, I don't know, dying, being homeless somewhere else. But I mean, whatever. Let's just jump into it and think later. And it worked out. But it's more, guts and stupidity.
And you went through a lot before you actually came out of your Judaism. And now you didn't just leave radical Judaism. You left Judaism as a whole. You're an atheist now, correct?
Yeah, yes, I'm an atheist, loud and proud, and I left any version of religion, and I did try. I tried. I actually, in the film
church.
that you can see, I went to a Calvary chapel. I spoke with a lot of people of different religions, and I really wanted to have that head in the sand, head in the dust peacefulness. Like, it's not like I just left and done. I mean, now I'm done, but at the beginning I really wanted to try. If not Judaism, maybe something else. But eventually science and logic were stronger than my will for, head in the dust.
And you went through a lot of shit before you got here, right? Like you suffered a lot from, I don't know if you want to go into that, but they did, you suffered a lot. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a few things mentioned in the film, one of them being sexual abuse, untreated mental illness, and untreated addiction, and several other things. Just me being a very curious person and always wanting to research, and I consume knowledge like it's candy, and people just not having the answers, and all of that combined makes for a pretty shitty childhood.
So you were raped by what was it? A school minister? What?
There were several stories. Several incidents. There was this guy Shul that happened almost on a weekly basis. And then there was a summer camp incident, which was more than one person. They didn't really go into that part because I even wanted that part out of the film, but it was important. So,
but they all are free right now. Like nothing is happening to these people, right?
Never even pressed charges or whatsoever.
I think, from what I remember in the movie, you said the way that you described this is that there were other people who knew, they were watching as this principal was doing this to you.
No, it's a bit confusing, but the principal is actually a different story. The summer camp incident was more than one person.
Okay. Yeah.
And I ran out of the building. There were people outside, and they saw them chasing me and pulling me back into the building, including my brother, who was outside there, also a student at the summer camp. And
take your time.
And sorry, what was the question? Yes, so the other people who knew, and the incident at Shul was something my father noticed and even yelled at the guy, but I wish a bit more than yell at him.
And the sense that I get from the entire experience is that there seems to be a separate law, for these people inside United States. They seem, this thing that people keep worrying about, like creeping Sharia. You're going to have 8 places in London they're going to have their own laws, and people are so scared. It seems like we already have that with this Jewish community in New York. They seem to be living by different rules compared to the rest of the world, the rest of the United States. It seems like the laws don't apply to them, and they get away. It seems like they're confident that the laws don't apply to them. Even when you threaten them with the law, they always brag about the fact that nothing is going to happen to them, because it seems like they have a lot of voting power. It seems like they have a lot of legal power, and it seems like they feel like they are, they're different from the rest. Nothing can get to them, and it seems like they're right. I mean, I couldn't believe that. That poor mother lost her.
Etty was the other another of the people who was profiled in the movie, and she's a mother of, I think she said 7 children, and she lost all of her children in a custody battle with her abusive ex-husband, who had been just assaulting her and sexually abusing her the entire time of their marriage. And she said that all of her, according to the courts, they have this thing called status quo, where the children have to continue with the same kind of lifestyle that they had before the divorce. So,
and then they can argue that anything is status quo. Right. In Judaism, if you drink milk, that a Jew saw it, coming out of the cow, then you can do it. But if you just bought milk at the grocery, even though it's just milk, you just broke the law. So by drinking one milk instead of another, she could have broken the status quo.
Right, and the status quo. The thing is, the community is so separate from the rest of the society that surrounds it that pretty much maintaining the status quo is impossible if the kids are exposed to anything outside. So she ended up losing custody.
Yeah, I mean the status quo that we saw in the documentary was that these children they're not supposed to have access to internet. They can't read any books that they call secular, and by secular they mean non-Jewish. They can't go to any secular libraries. The children books that they had, the faces of girls were completely blacked and with the Sharpie so that they couldn't see the girls' faces.
These are the reading books in school. They had blacked out
all for children.
Like the reading books in school, and these are just science books in school where they mark out important parts that don't match up with creationism. And even every place, I saw my sister's book. Every place, I'm going to send you a picture of it later. Every place where it says, for more information, go online, they had a stamp where they stamped in the words, internet is contaminated. Next to every place where it says, like, a URL, for more information, go there, there's a stamp, internet is contaminated.
I mean, even in Iran, when they use Sharpie to censor things, they don't censor the face. They censor the hair, they censor the legs, but they leave out the fucking face. This is in Iran, right? Which is a fucking theocracy. But these people couldn't even handle the face. They had to black out the face. Like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And even a lot of the text.
Yeah.
If it doesn't match up with the... I saw one place where I sort of worked on it and scratched it off. They, in the science book where they were talking about STDs, they blacked that out. Because a lot of people around here don't even know that STDs exist.
Right. This is so. You know what, Ari? I think if I was going to choose one scene, I mean, there were many scenes in that just had me completely shaken. But there's this one part of it, and I say, I have a daughter, and she's about 16 months right now, so she's just almost 1.5. And
Mazel tov.
Thank you. And but there was a scene when you were talking about how you had spoken to your family on the phone, and they'd all kind of spoken to you, and then you talked to your sister who was 2 at the time, just 2-year-old, and then you said something when you said that she was 2, and you said that she is still pure, right? And that just broke my heart. That devastated me because, a lot of times we talk about just, religion, what it does. We talk about, we're all from an Islamic background. We talk about terrorism and violence. And I know Armin's made this point before, and I have as well, that, we feel like terrorism is just sort of one of the symptoms. And really, the worst thing about religion is not terrorism. It's the indoctrination, the brainwashing, it's a systematic destruction of the mental faculties and the intellectual faculties and capacities that we have as human beings, and that that clean slate that you can write on, that's just completely destroyed and obliterated right from the beginning. And when you said that statement about your sister, and you said that she is still pure, that was just I was thinking, wow, she's there, she can still be a normal human being, but she's not going to be, because now she's going to go through the same thing. And then you see the future. You see what Etty in the movie went through with her situation. And you just don't know what to do. You're watching it and you want to scream at the TV. And then the worst thing is this is all happening in New York State. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And
this is not like a third world country or anything. And I mentioned it on the podcast a couple of days ago. I spoke to Chris Johnson. I'm sure you know him. He has a podcast called A Better Life, and in one of my big complaints were that I feel like my human right, the basic human right to have a knowledge of basically everything around me, and to know about the civil rights movement, so I'm not racist, to know about the women's rights movement, so I'm not sexist, all of that, I grew up being sort of brainwashed in those areas. I feel like my basic human right to know all of that was violated. I grew up without knowing that other people are also human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's why, it's the indoctrination of that is
human as in non-Jews are not supposed to be human, right? Like
I saw it in a religious book, and it's they look down on everyone else. If you're not a white Jewish male, and you fit exactly that, you are not. You're not as valued as us.
Yeah,
you're not one of us.
You're supposed to, if the world was in an ideal world for them, I heard everybody other than Jews would be slaves to the Jews, correct?
That's what they say what's going to happen when the Messiah will come. Which, by the way, every generation knows the Messiah will come in their generation, and then it doesn't. So we're like, okay, next one maybe. But yeah, when the Messiah will come, the Jews will basically have Israel, I think, or half the world or something, and everyone else, say the Hasidim Judaism, which is the Goyim, the non-Jews that were nice to us, they'll be our slaves. The rest will, I don't know, I'm guessing die. But those who are nice to us will be our slaves.
Actually, you know what? You're wrong, because that's what's going to happen to Muslims. The Muslims are going to get everything according to our belief.
No, it's the Jews, and you know it.
We'll all just have bacon together.
You know what? When I tell people, like, look, this Judaism is basically the same as white supremacy and Nazism because they have this Jewish supremacy, right? People are like, oh, why are you being so offensive? You're comparing Judaism with white supremacy. I'm like, look, they're saying non-Jews are beasts. They're not fully human. They're going to be slaves to Jews. This is what do you call this? Is Jewish supremacy.
I want to point out, though, that it's not Judaism. Like Reform Judaism and liberal versions of Judaism and more sort of 2018 versions of Judaism are not like that. They've taken the traditions of Judaism and sort of like, being like Judaism is a people. It's not just a religion. And I know a lot of these people who consider Judaism to be their tribe, and it's, God is the second step of it. And they're really nice. But Hasidic Judaism is what's stuck with this is what we are. We're never going to change. We hate, everything else. And
it's like the Salafi Islam, where they stick to the...
No. When we're talking about ideology and we're talking about people, we're talking about completely separate things. This is what makes talking about Judaism so difficult, because the word that we use for the ideology and the word that we use for the ethnicity is the same fucking word, and then people always think that you're being like hateful towards Jews when you're talking about Judaism, and like, no, I'm talking about the ideology. I'm not talking about the people. And to tell people how fucking frustrating it is that these two words are the same, I said, look, people already call us racist when we criticize Islam. Imagine how much of a more confusing situation it would be if the word for Islam and Arab was the same word. Then that would make the things even more complicated. And that's why we have such a hard time dealing with Judaism, because then when you're talking about the ideology and not the people, then people call you an anti-Semite. I'm like, no, I'm talking about the fucking barbaric ancient mythology. I'm not talking about an entire group of people.
Yeah, that's the example I always give is and it is a tough one, because with Judaism, there's Judaism, the culture, and there's the Judaism, the religion. But the example that I give is, usually I have a lot of Jewish friends who eat pork. Loads of Jews. Actually, I don't think I have a Jewish friend who doesn't eat pork. They all do. But then would it be correct to say that, I have a lot of friends who are Jews who eat pork? Would it be correct to say that Judaism allows the eating of pork? No, it wouldn't. So
the religion doesn't, but there might be reform or conservative, like just different versions where
Well, technically not different versions of Judaism. People that to be more accurate, I would say people that are taking Judaism seriously versus people that are taking Judaism less seriously. But Armin, I think
the reason it's a little different now is because you have scriptural Judaism, right? And the scripture, the whole idea of what the scripture in Judaism means has changed over time. Like there are Reformed Jews actually
and
don't
been twisted by a lot of people.
Yeah, it's
been twisted by a lot of people.
Yeah, they actually don't believe that it's the word of God. Whereas with the Quran, even
again, you're talking about people, not about ideas. When it comes about ideas, when you look at the source of the ideas, and when you read the text, you could be like, okay,
we agree on the text. The text,
there's
you're right.
You can't reform bullshit, but you can reform people. It's not the ideas that are reformed; it's the people that have reformed.
So this is Ari. I guess the next question is this: what we're getting to right now. This is that. You have this. You came from this community. We see the documentary, and there's a lot of talk in the documentary about this being a secret. Like these are the secret things about these communities that people don't know, and people don't necessarily want to talk about because anti-Semitism is obviously like a very serious issue, and what they think that it may stoke fears of anti-Semitism. So the experiences of someone like you, or someone like Eddie, or someone like Loser, who all three of you were profiled in this movie, and your lives were followed. People think that if you bring out the horrific experiences that you went through when you were raised in this community, that may cause people to justify their anti-Semitism. So that's why let's not talk about it. And we deal with a very similar thing that, we talk about Islam, we criticize Islam. It's like, oh, don't criticize the religion or the experiences you went to. Like Yasmin Mohammed, you know her, she was forced into a marriage with a member of Al-Qaeda. Well, let's not talk about that because there's all this anti-Muslim bigotry and Islamophobia that you might stoke. And so how do you deal with this? Because, when you have Catholics who've gone through experiences and they speak about it, they're praised. Scientology, Leah Ramani comes and speaks about it. And we had Ron Miscavige on a previous podcast as well. People, their books go to #1. Everybody's praising them to the moon. Same thing with Mormons. But when we talk about experiences of people like you, or experiences of people in the Muslim world, everyone wants to back away from it because they're like, oh, we don't want anti-Semitism or Islamophobia. So how do you deal with people? Are there people who say that to you, and how do you deal with it?
Well, I take great advice from Loser, who's also in the film. Who's also featured there. And when we were at Yaffed, the Toronto International Film Festival, someone asked exactly that question. Aren't you worried that this film will cause race or whatever anti-Semitism? And Loser asked them, are you Jewish? And she said, yes. So Loser said, instead of asking, is this going to cause anti-Semitism, how about you show the world that not all Jews are like that? If a part of a group of people is being radical and they're being doing all these things that can make the whole group look bad, I think it's on the rest of the group to say, hey, that's them. We don't condone that. And if you don't do that, well, you're not showing the world that you're not that. And it's like that with any community, and I think it can apply to the Muslim world as well. If the rest of the Muslim world isn't coming out and saying, and I don't know if they are, I'm not following, but if the rest of the world, the Muslim world, isn't coming out and saying, we don't condone these radical violence and everything, we don't, and this is just people who have gone off track, then you can't blame us for thinking, that you're all like that. And with Hasidic Judaism, I make it clear as much as I can. Reformed Judaism, in my opinion, I have a lot of friends who are Reformed, they keep the traditions, they're nice, and they keep the nice moral, values. Some of Judaism is moral values. They keep that, and they don't keep can I swear on this podcast?
You've heard Armin
they don't
go
keep
at
the
it.
fucked up stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
so they don't keep that, and they're also coming out showing that Judaism has a very nice side to it. It has very nice traditions, and the food and the family and the brotherhood, the culture. All of that is really nice, and that's actually what I like. I still go to shul sometimes, and I actually go to a shul where it's God optional. It's called the Lab Shul, run by Rabbi Amichai. He's really cool, and it's God optional. It's not a shul for God, it's a shul for people.
Actually, this is what makes it even more confusing, because there's three things to Judaism. There's the ethnicity, the religion, and the culture. Two of these things are okay. One of them is only bad. The culture is very, beautiful. And the good thing is that as an atheist, you don't have to give up the culture, right? You could just enjoy the culture as an atheist, because there's no rule in...
There's loads of atheist Jews,
Well, Hasidic Judaism would say that if I give up any of the three, especially if I give up the God part of it, then I'm not Jewish, and I'll burn in hell, or rot in hell for the rest of eternity and all of that stuff. But I went with the version of Judaism that doesn't say that. I go to lab shul sometimes. I know people who have very nice cultural, there's the shul in the Pratt Institute here in Williamsburg. I go there sometimes on Friday night. We do all the Friday night services there, but it's not about God. It's about the people coming together, having good food, talking and speeches and all kinds of fun stuff, It's a really nice culture part of it.
Yeah, I actually wrote about this, like the central, the whole idea of my book, and one of the things that sort of drives it is this difference between identity and ideology, and being able to pry the two apart. And sometimes what happens is that you have people who grew up in Muslim environments, and there are certain traditions. Every religion and you grow up, there's nice things. There's like the food in Ramadan, or there's in Jewish traditions, you have the same kind of thing. And, you stick to those, but you separate it from the ideology, and you can still sort of maintain a connection to the community aspect of it, but get rid of, you don't have to bear the burden of belief. And that's something that I think that as we move into the future, I think that's something that people, because one thing I noticed in the movie is that when you leave like this Hasidic community, you lose a lot. I mean, Eddie lost all of her kids. She lost her family. You have the loser. I saw loser. He has 2 children, and he was looking at his pictures and their pictures, and he was crying. And at one point, he was saying, "He's like, I'm in real life, and where I don't have children." And he actually had to separate himself from his children. That should not be necessary if you just want to think about things a different way. I mean, that's just it's just so abusive and sinister and evil. And this is one of the most evil things about religion in general, is that all of these other community aspects and these personal life aspects get intertwined. The identity part gets intertwined with the ideology, and they don't let you split the two apart, right? But
and I think out of my, I would summarize it in one sentence as God before friends, family, and moral values. Mm-hmm. So first we have God, and if we have some room left after that, if time allows, and if we still can get to it, we'll get to the family, friends, and moral values. I think, I go to Footsteps a lot. They've been a tremendous help in my life and in thousands of others who went through a similar journey as mine.
Wait, sorry. Can you describe, because we were going to talk about Footsteps. It's actually one of my favorite organizations. So can you describe Footsteps a little bit for the listeners who are not familiar?
Yeah, Footsteps was founded by a former member of the Hasidic community who left and realized that there is no help. We're basically, we leave and we're totally alone, and a lot of us go down a dark path. So we started with just a little office with 1, 2, 3 people working there, and now it's a major organization. They help people go through college. They help people with support groups for pretty much everything. We don't get sex ed, health classes. We don't have a high school diploma from the community as we come out. We don't know how to interact in real life, social skills, all of that. Really, what's necessary is what Footsteps provides, and they helped me go through a high school equivalency program, and now I am a high school graduate, which I was not. So 4 months ago I was not a high school graduate, and now I am. So I look around in Footsteps, and in terms of family, what we were just talking about, I'm actually very lucky. I can still speak to my family. Their relationship is not as great as I want it to be, but if I compare it to, how some of my friends can't speak to their family, some of my friends who their family is in court testifying against them, like their brothers, sisters, father, mother is in court testifying against them, and I compare it to their stories, and I'm really lucky, and I'm forever grateful for my parents for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
But when family wasn't there, what's that good?
Yeah, and how long? So what's the time? So when you left, how did your parents, your family, when did you talk to them? Was there a coming out moment, conversation, and then after that, what happened? How was it trajectory?
And how is the relationship now, actually, as well?
So I'll just walk you through what happened as I was coming out. So for, I think, a few years, my parents knew that I was going to be troubled, and I am trouble already. They caught me every once in a while, breaking laws and whatever. I remember my brother caught me using an MP3 player, listening to music on Shabbat, and he told me that all of the wine in the house is nessa. It basically means when someone who's not Jewish is looking at the wine, it's called nessa. It's considered contaminated, even just by looking at it. And anybody who's not following the rules of Shabbat can also do that. So my brother yelled at me and said, all the wine in the house is contaminated now, and we can't use it. Because I used an MP3 player on Shabbat to listen to music. So for a few years, like, they caught me every once in a while doing this and that, and they knew that I was going to be trouble. But it was kind of like...
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I'm one of 9 at the moment.
One of 9, okay.
So they knew I was not going to be this great kid, but, since I kept the beard and face and I didn't even trim it, they probably thought that God was going to work this out for them, with enough prayers and all. And I also thought that, I'll leave and I'll end up having a horrible life, even worse than it was. So I was kind of questioning myself and where I'm going next. What had happened was one August of 2015, as I was getting clean, I had, I think, 2 weeks clean and sober at the time, and I was invited one Friday night to hang out with a group of former addicts and alcoholics in Manhattan. So I went on the train and I had to put on sunglasses and a hoodie and cover my face, and it was in the summer. It was really hot outside, and it was not comfortable going around with, like, covered, in sunglasses and with a hood on everything. And anyway, we hung out, and I realized that I basically have another family. It's the former addicts and alcoholics. So they invited me to come to a picnic with them. The next day, I came, same thing, hoodie, sunglasses, and hiding, being afraid anybody can see me. And I was at the picnic, and I just thought, what, this can't go on anymore. I took out my phone, I looked up a barbershop nearby, I went there and I said, I need a haircut. Yeah, what kind? They go, this, the face, the beard. And you do some kind of style. I don't really care about that. Just get rid of these. And he's like, really? Sure. Oh, okay, fine. So did that. Went back to the picnic.
They showed that in the movie, right? Like
it's a bit confusing because I did it a total of 3 times. And I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But I came back to the picnic and people were like, I feel like I've seen you somewhere. Like, I recognize you, but I'm not quite sure who you are. I was like, I was just there like a half hour ago. I just look different. So, and then I went home later and there was like a week of like sort of silence where everybody knew that there's an entire family of elephants in the room, but nobody mentioned it. And then my dad sat down with me and he set some ground rules, and then there was a couple of months of really being not at war, but just we don't want you here, I'm staying here, and it got really tense. But eventually we learned to make it work, and I'm grateful that my parents were willing to learn, about it, especially addiction, and realize that if they kick me out, I'm gonna die. So, let's make it work somehow.
And your dad also understood, I think you mentioned in the movie that he understood that the addiction was, he understood the idea of addiction as a disease, that it isn't.
After explanation, yes. After my mom was with me in the ambulance as I was,
Can you also...
trembling on the way to the hospital. after that, it's kind of when things, I think.
Can you also tell us why you became an atheist? Like, you went to the fact that you got curious, you went and checked the internet. By the way, that was so amazing that they were in that big event that they were telling that internet is dangerous. They're giving the internet to our children. That was so, like, the number of people.
The internet is the devil. And I remember in school they had pictures on the wall, like cartoons, where there were like two pictures. One is a nice little Jewish boy, and one is like a giant monster with horns and breathing fire. Like, which one would you want your kid to look like? This is without internet, this is with internet. You know, just clear as day. They have cartoons on the wall.
Yeah, where I grew up, when they show the monster breathing fire, that's the Jewish guy. That's like in Saudi Arabia, the cartoons.
I guess they all followed a similar path. And it's just what we hate. The Nazis did that for everyone. I know, wasn't on their list of people worth living.
You know, it's hard. It's a little bit also hard for me to blame these parents for being so worried, because they really think that it's not about their kids' just life; it's about their soul, right? They're trying to save their children from the devil, right? So, I mean, if you really think that, then I mean, this is why the problem is not what they're doing. The basic the ideology is the problem, right? Because if what they're believing is true, then what they're doing makes rational sense, right?
Right, and they're doing this because they love me. My parents love me, and I know that.
Exactly.
And they're doing all of that, and even things that were destructive in my life. And the same with a lot of other parents. You know, a lot of parents who take their kids out of their house, it's like, if they have no other place to go, you know, then they might realize that then they're going to turn to God when they have no one else. You know, they're really doing it for their soul. Some are doing it for the soul of younger siblings, so they don't follow in the wrong footsteps. And the same thing with education is what I would say. And they don't give the kids an education of, you know, basic what you would need in life later on. And they really believe that if you would, they're doing it for your own good, because if you would have a knowledge of English, math, science, and social studies, you could explore, your eyes could open, your mind could open, and then you might, you know, potentially get to seeing that God is bullshit.
So how did that fail on you, though? How did you manage to, I mean, you went and discovered Wikipedia, and that was your moment of realization.
It was Google first and then Wikipedia, but I was overwhelmed by Wikipedia. It was mind blown.
What is the first thing you looked up? Do you remember on Wikipedia?
I don't remember, but I remember I found Google. I stumbled upon Google. I had this old BlackBerry that was, when I was like 13, I had this old BlackBerry that I bought. And I stumbled upon Google at some point, and I searched for something, and the Wikipedia thing came up. And at first I didn't realize that this is a site dedicated to knowledge and everything. I just knew it was, you know, I thought it was a site just on that page or something. But then once I started searching, it was like, so I want to just explain, I could only use the phone in the bathroom, because everywhere else, you know, people around me, and I was not supposed to use the internet. So basically, I didn't use the bathroom for like weeks.
and with a family of like 9 siblings, you must have gotten a lot of grief for that.
Yeah, but also in school, or I would go to school or anything, I would just be in the bathroom and look up Wikipedia. And it's not even watching movies or playing games on my phone. It was like consuming knowledge, reading as fast as I can, and then searching, clicking. Later on, there were times when I couldn't have a phone. My dad found too many of them and broke it, and I didn't have money to buy new ones. I would hack his computer or other computers, like his work, other places where I didn't have access to the computer. I would print out Wikipedia pages. And while I was in the sheet, I would read them, and I would have a pen and mark some stuff. And I'd be like, okay, this word, I should look that up next, and then look that up on Wikipedia and print out. But I was so excited. I was like, I don't need oxygen, food, music, or anything. I don't even need a life. All I need is this and more of this.
But what made you different, though? Why do you think? Because they have a pretty good system to make sure people don't become a black sheep like you did, right? But why do you think you know, was it something that triggered all this, or are you just naturally different? Like, what do you think it was?
I had a really bad childhood. For a lot of people, and I want to clarify that, for a lot of people, Hasidic Judaism is really, really good and working for them. Well, I don't think it's working for them because they're not really using their full potential in life. But for them, the way they see it, is even if they would have all the options, they would still pick Hasidic Judaism. That's how they see it, and that's why they're so happy. They go through their entire life really happy and content and peaceful. Head in the sand is a really peaceful feeling. So for me, it was not always peaceful. I had a really shitty childhood. Between the sexual abuse, the untreated mental illness that they were going to pray away, and just being bullied always. That led me to first ask questions. When I would still believe in God, I was like, how can a God let this happen? Regardless of what you say, whatever explanation, free will and everything. I mean, you're fucking God. You can't figure out how to keep free will intact and stop kids from being raped? Like, but how? I don't know. You're God. Figure it out.
Yeah, when people say it's God's plan, I'm like, well, he sucks at planning then. I mean, right? There's whatever his goal is, there must be a better way at achieving it. And if he's God, he should be able to figure it out.
Yeah, if you figured out DNA and the universe and everything, I mean, you're God. Not you God. You're fucking God. Figured it out. Right. So it started like that with just questions. How could a God let this happen? Especially since I was under 13 for a lot of that. And in Judaism, you can't be punished even if you did a sin before you're 13. That's when you're technically an adult, or that's when you're religiously, an adult. So it's like, I'm 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. There's no way in hell I could have any sin. Kind of like you, Armin. I heard your story, how I think that if you're at the age of 15 in Islam, or 12, it's when you're easy path to heaven.
Yeah, after 15, your sins start counting. Is that
okay, we'll see
for us
about
it's
that.
13, so I guess we're smarter than you, and we're adults sooner. So,
oh my God!
Well, for us the girls are 9. Is that the same? What is it for girls for you?
For us it's 12.
Huh? What? 5?
12.
They mature faster than boys, and they're smarter than boys. They just
This is very similar. Why is it the girls always less than the guy? Well, no, I think this whole they mature faster is an excuse to marry them off sooner.
Yeah, well, I believe that they mature faster and they're smarter, but Judaism doesn't think that way. Anyway, I was going to get back to, I was 10, 11, 12 years old, and I was like, there's no way I can have any sin on my record, and yet I'm suffering. So, I mean, either the Bible is talking about the wrong God, or the Bible, or God is evil to begin with. I was like, something doesn't match up logically, and I'm a very logical person. There's no way I can have any sin on my record. So I should not have any suffering until maybe when I'm 13 and I've done enough sin, then, I would like to see a bill and a receipt for all my sins and what kind of punishment I'll get, then I'll accept that. But until then, no. So I had a lot of questions, and naturally I went to my teachers, parents, and adults around me with my questions. Most of them yelled at me. Some of them just passed me on to another person and asked them. And there was a lot of, we don't ask that question. That's not something we ask. And I was like, why? I mean, that notion, God, wants, he or she or they wants a lot from me. Like a serious awful lot. Everything, dictating everything in my life. So, don't you want to know why? Like, if you get a ticket, like a summons from a police officer, you want to know why. If the government tells you to pay taxes, you want to know why. It's not, how is it when it comes to something that has no proof, no evidence for it, and has been disproven so many times, well, not disproven, just like, contradicts logic and common sense. How is it that when it comes to that, you're just like, we don't ask? And that those answers didn't satisfy me.
Because there's no knowledge or evidence. That's why.
Yeah. So I did my research and I searched and I wanted to find God. And I prayed to God, reveal yourself to me. And I prayed to God before sticking the needle in my arm every night. God, help me. I don't want to do this anymore. And at some point I came to the realization, after doing more research and learning more about, what kind of answer does atheism have for world's creation, what does science have to offer in terms of answers. I came to realize that, no such thing. And that's actually when my addiction started getting better. I realized I have no safety net. I have no magical notion that's gonna come and save me from it. If I want to get clean, I got to get off my ass and do it myself, and that's what I did. And this is the first time that my sobriety is lasting.
You also mentioned that you felt free, that you get to do the things that a man can do, and you also said like I could eat a burger with cheese now, and and you feel So, but you also missed some of it, but you also felt free. Was it? But then now that as an atheist, you don't. I really understand the missing part, because as an atheist, you could still be part of the take advantage of the culture if you miss it, right? So what is that? Do you think like you gained some freedom, but you also lost something?
I lost a lot, yes. Yeah. So the freedom that I gained is not necessarily the burger with cheese. I can live if God's rule was just that. No, but it's about the freedom to eat that burger with cheese, and nobody's yelling at me for eating a freaking burger with cheese. Right. It's about.
Have you moved to bacon yet? Bacon?
Yes, I love bacon. Oh my god.
Okay.
Just to explain to people, like you can't have meat with dairy, because God said you can't. You can't apparently roast lamb.
And here's actually what I wanted to say. You know, originally in the Bible at some point it says which means you should not cook the meat of a goat with the milk of their mother. Basically, that's what this says. And from that, they took no meat and no milk, and somehow they know that after eating meat, you have to wait 6 hours before you can eat dairy. And after eating dairy, you only have to wait a half hour till you eat meat. All of those rules came out, and there were just people basing on top of something and basing on top of something. So it was about the freedom.
Where does the hats come from?
The hats?
The hats and the curly hair, like where does that come from? They just make stuff up as they go, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, the funny hats, right? Like the Pope, and then the Muslims have their little skull caps and the hijabs, and then you have everybody's got the religion is all about. I think it was
but it's
George
just so
Carlin.
weird. It's like, oh, you have this God that created the stars and the mountain and the flowers and all these animals, and he also wants to curl your hair and also put these funny hats on. Like what?
Yes. And he also wants a piece of your penis.
Yeah. Well, that's. I wanted to actually ask about that. Come to that, but I wanted to remind Armin, or actually, I wanted Armin to remind me that there was, you were talking about how they got the rules from how they went with how much time you have to wait between the meat and the dairy. What was that hadith that we had where there was if a fly fell into your?
Oh yeah. If a fly fell into your drink, make sure that you dip if one of the wings gets into your drink, make sure you dip the other wing in your drink as well before you actually drink it, because every fly has every fly has two wings, and each one of the wings carries one of them carries a poison, and the other one the antidote to that poison, right? So you don't know which wing got into your drink, so make sure both of the wings get into your drink, so that the antidote from if it was the poisonous one that got in, you also make sure you get the antidote to your drink. So
yeah, so if the fly dips one wing and then flies away, you got to run after that fucking fly and get it back so you can dip the other
or
wing.
Just throw the drink away.
But here's another another example of religion being stupid, because the logical and more efficient thing to do would be to eat the fly and both wings.
Exactly. See, there you go. This is why
that would be the efficient thing. But they just tell you to dip the fly like it's a cookie in milk. No, just eat the fly, and that's the only way you're guaranteed to get all of it in.
Yeah.
And consume every part.
I have, listen, Ari, I've got so many questions. I wanted to ask you about a friend of mine.
I have so many questions, I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine, and actually a really good friend of my wife's, and her name is Freemet Goldberger. I don't know if you know her.
I think I've heard that name before.
Yeah, so she was from a village called Kiryas Joel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, it's Hasidic Judaism on steroids, so you can imagine what that's like.
Okay, so it's even beyond the stuff that you went through.
It's a town where everything, law enforcement, the fire department, everything is Hasidic Jews. They have a Jewish mayor, and I think it was a village, and now it recently turned into a town, I think a town. And that means that even the judges, I think, are going to be Hasidic Jews. So it's going to be game over for any court case before the court even begins.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense, because she wrote an article, and she had an interview, called, and it's titled, "I Am a Woman in America and I Wasn't Allowed to Drive." So she was saying, and I remember people started getting, it's like, how could you not be allowed to drive? This is in Saudi Arabia. She's like, no, the village that I was in, this Kiryas Joel, I really was not allowed to drive. I did not sit behind a steering wheel until I was 23. She had to actually escape the town, right, under very difficult circumstances, just so she could drive the car.
This should be illegal. This is like a hostage situation.
Okay, so this is also in New York State, and she wrote this article, and I remember we went there. She's just got there's a beautiful family, and she showed us, we were at her place, and she had, she's got these really cute kids and so on, and she showed me her wedding photos when the same thing. She had to shave her head, and then she had to wear a wig because. This is a similar concept to Islam. In Islam, they say that you have to cover your hair because hair is too seductive.
They have the rule of smears, which is anything that makes someone look appealing or attractive. They don't say it exactly like that, but if you look at the rules, it pretty much matches up exactly with what makes someone look attractive.
Yeah. So we were actually thinking.
This is why it's so bullshit when in Islam people say hijab is not a bad it's not a bad that, it's a bad identity, it's not a bad sexual, like fucking bullshit. You can see the origins in other religion, and you know exactly why they this is basically men trying to protect their properties from other men. This is what it is. That's
because it's their property. Yeah. They have this woman belongs to this man. And I think the way you would see it is if the woman has a choice, whether she wants to wear that or wants to shave her head or not, that's when you can see if it's something forced on them or if it's really an identity. But if they don't have a choice, then it's someone else forcing them to do something.
Yeah, but if you do have a choice and you still choose the hijab, then you either knowingly or unknowingly betraying your sisters.
Right, it could be indoctrination, because even if you take away the must shave your head at the wedding rule from Hasidic women, they're still going to do it because they've been indoctrinated in that way. So
yeah, that's actually a really good point, because Armin, if you recall, Yaz talked about when she used to wear the headscarf and she used to wear the even the burqa and all that, and even
after she escaped the Al Qaeda.
No, even so, what happened was that after she escaped it, she struggled with taking it off. So I don't want to misquote her or speak for her, but I remember her saying that she felt like when she took it off, she felt like she was naked because she was so used to. She'd been indoctrinated and brainwashed into wearing it that she felt it was. And I've actually said that there are many other ex-Muslim women I know who grew up dressing very conservatively, and they actually, one of them actually said, "Okay, wow, I wore a skirt for the first time in my life today," and it felt really weird, but I was brave enough to go out and do it. So even though they've become atheists and they've let all that go, that part of it, that indoctrination, it's really, really powerful. And I mean, it
comes from an early age. Like from when I was born, I only read those newspapers, listened to those music. I only heard those people's opinions. And when I took off my yarmulke, I was just like, touching my head. I was like, I feel like I'm missing something there. What is my hair gone? No, my yarmulke is missing.
Yeah, I know.
It felt weird, and that's why with fashion, for example, in the film.
What's the point of that, anyways? Is that so that God, from looking on top, could recognize who's his people?
I honestly don't know. That's the thing with Hasidic Judaism, that they don't really explain it. The answer we got in school is that Yir Shemayim, which is the literal translation would be fear of God, is sort of leaving your head when you don't have that on. It's like Yir Shemayim is like helium that would leave your head if you don't wear the yarmulke.
This whole idea of having to fear somebody that you're also supposed to love makes no sense.
Well, that's what what wife battering syndrome is.
He loves you, but he's gonna kick your ass if you don't do exactly as he
and also love me.
That's the underpinning of that's what abuse is, and I think Christopher Hitchens compared this to battered wife syndrome or battered person syndrome. Was when the guy, her husband comes and just beats the crap out of the wife, and the next day comes, I really love you, I love you, I only do this because I love you, and then the cycle repeats, and
it shows how much I care. That's
it's the basis of the master slave relationship, is I think is what he said. When it comes,
I think the proper way to do this is for the wife to take a baseball bat and give a beating of her own, and then say, "Well, I love you too, honey."
But going back to the modesty culture, I saw there was a sign in the community that says no stocking that is the color is close to the skin color, right?
Yeah, and also stockings need like seams on it so you can see that it's not the skin.
So they have these own rules in the community, but if you rape a child or if you beat your wife, those do not go. There's rules that you do not report. A Jew does not report a Jew to the police, right? That's
why I wanted to say earlier when you asked if they don't have law. Well, the answer is yes, and no. They have law. Technically, the law applies to them, but they vote. Yes, technically, exactly. So they vote as a bloc. Anything that you want to get accomplished in the U.S., you have to go through politicians. Anything in terms of law. And especially since a lot of judges in New York are elected and not appointed. You want to get reelected, you basically don't rule against a few 100,000 votes. So the only way to really stop this is by raising awareness. If millions of others know and know to vote accordingly, you can counter that black vote. For example, I'll give you a perfect example. Education in Hasidic schools. Legally, they have to provide a certain curriculum, being science, social studies, English, math, the very basics, which I think is a human right to know, the very basics. A few years ago, an organization called Yaffed filed a lawsuit against, I think, 36 or 38 yeshivas, saying they do not provide that. And a group of people coming from those yeshivas said, we were in those schools, we did not get an education, it severely harmed our chances for a future, and they basically wanted the government to enforce the law. They said they'll do a investigation and they'll come out with a result. It's been a few years. They said the investigation is going to take about a month. It's been a few years, and they haven't gotten through, I think not even 20% of it. And in the meantime, thousands of kids are growing up without an education and have to supplement that later on. Why? Because if they start enforcing the law, the Hasidic yeshivas will cry about it, and in the next round of elections, whoever, did something against that will not win the election.
Mike, this is okay. So, these are the things that we make fun. Like whenever there's a sign in an Islamic community that, hey, do this, no alcohol zone. It gets so much attention. Like, oh, look, there's this. They have a fucking no alcohol zone in fucking London, right? Like, how is this happening? But apparently, we already have had this in New York, similar communities, and it's not getting as much attention as it deserves. Like, these are people that are living in a cult, and they have their own rules and their own standards. And not only the government is not doing anything, apparently they are the ones that are controlling the government. I mean, these people that. There was a quote at the very beginning, close to the beginning of the movie, that nobody leaves unless they're willing to pay the price, right?
From Penny Getter. She works for Footsteps. And
she said, and the price is really high. And I thought, the price is really high. You're going to be, ostracized and you're going to be harassed and stuff. But at the end of the movie, the fact, Effie, when she lost her kid, I didn't think it's going to be that high. I mean, she left this religious community and she came to the secular community, and the secular world betrayed her. It didn't protect her.
She was a refugee from the Hasidic community, and the U.S. law should have protected her. And it's infuriating, and the even more so, she didn't even want to leave the community at first. She was going to continue on being Hasidic, for the kids, giving them this head in the sand, peaceful life. She was not even trying to change the kids. What she really wanted to begin with was a divorce from an abusive husband. Once she asked for a divorce, a woman sticking her head up asking for a divorce is a horrible thing. I mean, their opinion, not mine. And I just want to clarify, because somebody, might say that I said it. You know how it is with the internet these days. So she only wanted a divorce from an abusive husband. From that, everything went downhill. She had the audacity to ask for a divorce when only the husband.
And if I would just, one of the parallels I'd make here is so for listeners who haven't heard our previous episode with Ron Miscavige is the father of David Miscavige, who's the current head of Scientology, and so he's part of the leadership of Scientology. He had to escape. He talked about how he had to escape from that compound that they were on just for Scientology. Scientology is like a religion that nobody really feels hesitant to criticize or to, shit on, essentially. So it was so difficult for him to, and that's an insular community that is gated, and there's completely different laws applying to people there, and they're being abused en masse. And now, if it's like that for Scientology, which is really, really easy to criticize, imagine what it would be like for a Hasidic Jewish community, where people are much more reluctant to call it out. So, these are little insular communities in the United States, a free country where women are being abused routinely, children are being abused routinely. And when we talk about Sharia courts
and other women that's seeing this, that were considering leaving the community, they see that this woman, because she left, she lost her children. She lost her children, and they're going to be
This is not a unique case. There's organizations dedicated for this because there's so much help needed.
And the husband got so many lawyers. The whole community came and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the husband to be able to defend. And she had no money to be able to afford anything like that. And based on what you're saying, would you say the judge was also biased?
The judge was Orthodox Jewish.
Oh my fucking God. All right. And the judge says his main concern was the reason why he gave the children to the husband was that the children seem to hate their dad and love their mother. And this was concerning to him. And he said it was the mom's fault that this was happening. So he sent the kids to the one that the children hated. And he said you have to wait, 10 days or 2 weeks before you could send them a letter. And then after that, she could see them 1 hour a week. Is that it?
I don't know exactly what it is, but it's I think it's a half hour, an hour every week or 2 weeks. But it's also supervised visitation, and imagine how that makes a really good mother feel, that she can only see her kids when they're supervised. It's like, do you really think I'm going to harm my own children? It's infuriating. And as I got familiar with the story more and more, it was just like,
you feel helpless.
How could we even start? Like, we're trying to think like, oh my gosh, like we want to fix these situations like this in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Bangladesh, but we haven't even managed to fix these fucking things in fucking New York. This is happening. Like, we are so behind on this.
Ari, I don't know if you I don't know if you know the legal aspects of this, so this may be a question that you wouldn't have a complete answer for. But do you know if like Eddie is now in the secular world? Is she able to get a secular lawyer and
can we do a fundraising?
Do a case, do another child custody thing?
Well, here's some good news about that. Well, regarding the case, it's kind of on hold, and it's a really bad situation. But Etty is actually going to law school right now, and she's studying criminal justice. And she's going to be a really great lawyer, and she's going to help a lot of people. And a lot of people called in, and a lot of people, emailed Loki Films, Netflix, Footsteps, and reached out to all of us on social media and said that they want to help Etty. They actually created a fund for Etty's education.
Wow.
It's basically ettysfund.com, I think, or .org. You can see it on the Loki Films, on one of our Facebook page. And she's going to law school. She is kicking ass at college. And, I think she's already 2 years in college, and she's going to be a great lawyer and help so many people. And that is going to be such a big, comeback. Like, you wanted me to be oppressed. You wanted me to be abused and quiet.
Is she's still without her children?
Yes. Yeah, but I think if enough people come together and show support for this, I think, I don't know exactly, I'm not exactly working on that part. I help out as much as I can, but I'm not involved really in the planning, so I can't really know what's coming or what's going to happen.
It's so sad because those early years with your mom also are such a big deal,
right.
That's where the bonding is. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. How do people in the Hasidic community, the community that you came from, how do they see the Reform Jews and the secular Jews? I mean, I know they talk about the secular world a lot, but how do they think of them as Jews? Do they consider them real Jews? Do they say they're not Jews? Or
they don't consider them as Jewish. No, where I came from, anybody who is not exactly like us. And it's funny because even Hasidic Judaism is fighting. It's like Sunni and Shiite, I think.
Yeah, Sunni and Shiite.
The Muslims have. Yeah, so there's so many sects of Hasidic Judaism, and a lot of them fight each other, and it's just like, I'm a real Jew. No, I'm the better Jew, and this is just, it's just upside down. It's going to collapse at some point. I mean, it's not going to go on forever. I think
how can we help the collapse?
What?
So how could we help the collapse of this? I mean, this for me. This seems like a hostage situation where I would send the military to free people, but I don't know. But
the thing is, those people don't want to be free. Most of them, not because they don't want, it's just they've been indoctrinated. And when you ask them, hey, would you like let's say the military comes in, National Guard, all with guns and everything, and they're like, would you like to be free? And they'd be like, no, even if we had a choice, we would still...
Well, I guess that's the next question.
I would have a forced anonymous questionnaire for at least those ones that secretly want help to be able to anonymously ask for.
Well, that's what Footsteps is for.
Yes.
And they are underfunded and overwhelmed, but they are doing an amazing job at helping everyone. Everyone who's looking for help.
How can we have this judges like that fucking judge, shouldn't they be named and shamed and removed from their position? Like,
if it would be that easy, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, obviously the Hasidic Jewish community is growing, but have you seen the people that left? So the three in this movie, I know about Frimet. I know that there are a few other people that I know who've left. Is there? Have you noticed a pattern? Are there more people leaving? Are there other people that you know?
Yes,
like organizations.
Well, they're
like
having
Footsteps,
9 children each, so I don't know.
Yeah, so they're multiplying at a staggering rate. But also, yeah, I see also. I never really wanted. There was never really like my plan and wish that everybody was Hasidic Jewish should. Become an atheist. That was not my plan, because I feel like, even though I think religion and the notion of God is bullshit, I think some people see comfort in that, and I it was never my plan to go in. What I would do is change them in a significant way, and what I think is going to end up happening is, if you're open to more information, less indoctrination, they're going to come to their senses on their own without me coming in with guns and forcing them. So,
some people see comfort in heroin as well. Doesn't make it okay.
True. And also with heroin, I don't go in and try and take needles from people. I talk to them. I educate them about the dangers of heroin.
Yeah, of course. Of course you can't force people out of their beliefs. You have to
exactly. So what I'm saying is, if people are coming in trying to force Hasidic people to be not Hasidic, all you're going to get is resistance. What you really need is to just make a little hole in the box, let them think outside. Eventually, they'll come to their senses on their own.
Yeah, no, I wasn't being serious about the military. I was just what I wish we could do is and you mentioned that that's what's what's happening is to figure out more of those people that do want actually out, and figure out a way to communicate with them, and that's what Footsteps is for, right?
Yeah, and Footsteps has a name. Everybody knows that if you're leaving, your first address that you go to, the first phone number you call is Footsteps.
Right.
Footstepsorg.org. The first address, the first website you go to is that. Everybody already knows that, and from there you go further. And they have amazing programs.
Do you think that people know in the Jewish community?
Everybody knows about Footsteps. Growing up, Footsteps being this evil organization that comes in and takes kids from their mothers and takes them away on this path of hell. But no, actually, Footsteps is not at all like that. Footsteps is just there. They provide help to whoever is asking for help. They don't go around, they don't have like Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't advertise, they don't do any of that. They're there. When you ask for help, they're there for you.
I had the good fortune of speaking.
Would it be against, when you say they don't advertise, as if that would be a bad thing, wouldn't it be okay for them to advertise?
No, meaning they don't like go around with Jehovah's Witnesses. They're like, hey, would you like to burn a Bible with me? Hey, would you like, they're not doing like, a lot of religious communities are doing, which is going around and trying to recruit.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that if religious people...
No, Armin, what they're saying is like, and this, they talked about this in the movie, they're not going out and trying to go and ask people to, hey, you want to come out. They're basically there as a receptacle.
But I'm saying that, I understand that, but I'm just saying if they did that, if they decided that that was a good thing to do, I wouldn't be against that. You know,
yeah, I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't be against it either. But also you have to keep in mind that they're underfunded as is, with the thousands of people leaving. And so I guess the first priority is the people who seek help. So I guess that would be like the first round of people that they help. And they make sure people know, and not they make sure, I mean, everybody already knows, you know, the community actually did the PR for them, you know, saying how evil they are, that they help people leave. So the advertisement was actually done by the community. And just people know that they're there and they help. I used to, the funny story actually how I heard about First Steps is, I was writing for a Jewish, website. They call themselves Jewish News 246, as in 24/6, like they're not open at Shabbat. And the owner or the person there asked me to write an article against Footsteps. So I started researching it, and I was like, okay, cool. I should probably go on the inside and do some, you know, research and all. And I called in. I wanted to sign up. I was under 18 at the time and couldn't. But not long after I turned 18, I joined Footsteps, and it's been an interesting ride since.
Yeah.
So you became an atheist, and another guy. What was his name? The other guy that is an actor.
Loser.
He also mentioned that he's not religious. What about do you see that as do most of the people that leave, do they become fully non-religious, or is it half, or is it mostly some people that just leave the radical but they still believe in the religion but not radical?
It varies from person to person. A lot of them become atheists, and a lot of them don't even put thought into it. A lot of them are just like, this is abusive, this is a cult, I want to be somewhere else, I don't care whether God exists or not, I don't care, but this is a cult, I do not wish to be in a cult, so I'm checking out.
And when you ask, was that a guy, the rabbi? Was that guy?
Rabbi Yosef Rappaport, yeah. He's actually he's not a rabbi, he's a respected community member.
Okay. When you were talking to him and you'd ask about God or stuff, it's like, we don't ask these kind of questions. It's something like to that effect.
Yeah, in Hasidic Judaism, we don't delve into that kind of question. We don't ask, and my question is, why not? Well, other versions of Judaism do that. That's why I keep on making it clear that, Hasidic Judaism is radical Judaism. And there's a lot of Judaism that focuses on traditions and culture and being a people. We have our language and we have these traditions.
The cultural part, not the religious
culture.
part.
And that is actually what I really like. It's just Hasidic Judaism took it as we have no culture. We're not a people. We are people who believe in God and will do anything we think that God wants.
This is not a game. This is not a game we play for fun. This is about your soul.
This is about God.
That's what they say.
Yeah. So I had I wanted to, now that we're moving towards culture. So I've noticed that I'm a huge advocate of it. I mean, this is what I write about, is that I think the first step to moving forward and moving past all of this stuff is to separate the identity part from the ideology part, to separate the cultural aspect from it, so that it makes it a little easier. It lowers the price of letting go, the cost of letting go to some extent.
They don't let us separate that. It's like when you leave, you're out. And,
that's
I sort of have to find other communities, like Lab Shul, like Rabbi Simcha Weinstein Shul and the Prayer Institute, like all of those places, which are, we love you. You're a Jew. You're part of our culture. You're one of us. And, Rabbi Simcha, he's a rabbi. He gives me a hug every time I go there. I go to Rabbi Yarmulke. He knows I'm an atheist. And he recognizes that there are things that, such as, moral values and all of that are actually important.
Right. And so I wanted to get to, there are some things, there's some remnants, even with the culture. And I noticed this with Muslims, even the most liberal and secular and progressive people, even the ones who are sort of agnostic or even atheistic like me, they will still stick to certain things that are they just think are normal because they're so used to. Like, you mentioned earlier, and we were going to talk about this, is the circumcision aspect. They will still circumcise. They'll still take their newborn sons and just hack away at their genitals. And there are. This is so widespread that even in the, I have a background as a physician, as a pathologist, and even at least the American Academy of pediatric boards, actual medical bodies, they say, there are some benefits to it, even though they don't recommend it. There's no medical body in the world that recommends routine circumcision on healthy babies, but they still try
and I don't think any pediatrician recommends the way they do it.
Well,
they actually bite off a piece of the skin.
They do. So I was going to get to that, and what's it called? It's called Metzitz.
They suck out a little bit of the blood with their mouth and bite off the last piece. So honestly, I'll be honest with you. At some point when I'll have kids, hopefully, I might circumcise. But I'll be in the hospital and I'll ask the doctor, what is your professional recommendation?
There's nothing. There's no reason to do it. There's zero reason.
I'm just saying, when I'll be there, I'll ask the doctor, not as a Jewish person, not as I'll just be doctor. Do you recommend this? Yes or no, for health reasons, for whatever. You recommend this.
Be careful. Ask. Don't ask one doctor. Ask many doctors, because
of course,
one time I asked my doctor if just because. Ask a scientist maybe, because some doctors are really
of course,
just know how to be a doctor. Some people.
But I'm saying I'll definitely not do it the way they do it, which involves sucking out blood with the mouth, biting off.
Remember Ben Carson, before you don't just check with doctors.
So I wanted to just kind of, what Ari's talking about, you kind of skimmed over the method, but what happens is it's called Metzitza B'Peh. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
And what happens in this case is that the moil...
The literal translation is sucking with the mouth. That's the literal translation.
Yeah, sucking with the mouth. So what they do is they actually do the circumcision of the baby, and this is a ritual. They do it...
Not done by a doctor, by the way.
Not a doctor, by moil, and he basically bites it off, and then they cut the foreskin, and then after that, immediately after cutting it, he puts the penis of the baby in his mouth, and sometimes with wine in the mouth. And this is the religious tradition of it. This is, it's actually horrifying even as I'm saying it. And this was actually a very controversial thing some time ago in New York, where I think Michael Bloomberg, who's also of a Jewish background, was saying that we should stop this because there were cases of oral herpes. That these babies were...
Yeah, I think 80% of the U.S. population has oral herpes in one version or another.
That's actually...
So it's kind of like inevitable that if you have a lot of moles who are putting their mouths on babies' penises, that something is going to happen at some point.
Right. So it's such a widespread HSV1, the first type of herpes virus, is so widespread among the general population that, if someone has a cold sore and they perform this, if a moil performs this on a little baby, the baby's going to get genital herpes. He's going to get that form of oral herpes, that same virus, and it'll be genital herpes. And this has been happening, and this is something that Michael Bloomberg talked about, and it became a very controversial thing in the name of religious freedom. So the idea was that religious freedom allows us to increase the risk of our children getting herpes. And this is... a circumcision overall, this is the way that they do it is really messed up as well. But just the idea of doing this to babies without their consent is And we will have a future episode on this.
Every religion has is the most craziest thing they do. I think with Judaism, this is it. This is the fact that they suck on baby penises, and this is considered normal. I think this is at some
point you got to ask yourself, what can you do in the name of religion? Can you kill people in the name of religion? At some point you got to ask yourself, how far does it go?
Exactly.
Yeah. In the name of religion, what can you do? Can I drop a nuke on a country in the name of religion if that country is eating bacon? If over 50% of that population is eating bacon, am I allowed to drop a nuke in the country? In the name of religion, of course.
To your point, if this was not religion, if this was not in any religion to do this, and somebody did this, it would be fucking headline news. It would be, the whole world would be going, what the fuck, right? But because it's religion, sometimes it gets attention. Bloomberg comes out, controversy, and then goes again, and people continue doing it. But if it wasn't religion,
and it didn't get any momentum. The whole thing against it didn't get any momentum. Why? Because if you want to get elected, you want to get reelected, you better shut up about it.
If it wasn't religion and somebody did that, even normal circumcision, if it wasn't a thing and there was a small cult started chopping off baby penises, people, the whole world would be like, "Why? What the fuck is going on?" There would be police,
just the fact that you said a phrase like normal circumcision. I mean, this is something that I don't know. It blows my mind completely that there is, and I'd like to do. Armin and I have talked about doing a future episode on it. We have some guests that we're going to reach out to. The idea that, if you have tonsillitis as a baby, then
I know what that is, but
you still need a certain number of episodes, and you still need a certain amount of time, or that has gone by before you can surgically take out the tonsils. There's absolutely no surgical procedure, not one, apart from circumcision, where you can perform it on a baby without their consent, without any medical reason, and you can routinely. And the amount of skin that's removed from the penis is a third to half of the skin. I was in pathology, and we used to get these foreskin samples, and they're used later for beauty creams and everything. So if you're someone listening to this, go ahead and Google it. I'm not kidding. So baby foreskins are actually $1.5 billion industry. But in any case, that's separate from that. I mean, these are huge pieces of skin that are actually coming to the path.
I want my money back.
I know. You're right.
They stole whatever amount of money from me when I was 8 days old. And
there's a,
taking into account inflation and what I could have invested this in, it should be a couple of
grand. You could have done
it.
You would have had to harvest a lot of them, though. But I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that even when
if you want to introduce,
sorry, Armin, I just wanted to finish this. That even when you have secular versions of certain religiosity, even when you have reform versions of certain religions, even if someone becomes a Jewish atheist or an atheist Muslim or whatever, or an ex-Muslim, a lot of these people still stick to, when we stick to the traditions, this is one of those traditions that even a lot of progressive people stick to. This is, I think, the emblematic of how harmful religion is, that even when people have left it,
I wouldn't.
Yeah, they still stick to it.
I might still do some of the traditions, like eating kugel. I love kugel, and I'm going to stick with that. And I don't care if both of you are atheists. I'm still going to eat kugel, and I love it.
That's fine. But I'm talking about cutting your.
But things like circumcision and things like that is what I would get a professional opinion.
No, the difference is even if you didn't take a professional opinion, if you're an adult, you can go ahead and circumcise yourself. The thing is that you're doing it. If you want to eat whatever you want, the thing is that you're not forced to do it. You're not told that you're going to suffer in eternity for it if you do or you don't do it. You choose.
You're doing it to yourself as an adult.
No,
right?
These cultural things in Judaism, you just do it because you like it. You think it's fun. You don't do it because you think like you have to, right? But whatever you do to a baby, it's something that it hasn't decided. You have to wait for it to become an adult. Like, you can't make that decision for somebody that might regret that you made that decision for them.
I feel the same thing is with education. Even though you think this child is going to be on a path of Hasidic Judaism and is never going to need an education, but if you don't give them an education, you're sort of locking them into a contract, with them being stuck, and their only option is stay in Hasidic Judaism. And that's always been my argument. You can't just make up. You can't just lock them into a contract of what they're going to be for the rest of their life. That is not your right. A parent who's doing that, you don't have that right as a parent.
You should make a religion where we take off like a little, the tiny toe from the left foot of every baby, right? And if people complain,
what about the nose? I feel like the nose is not really an important organ. We can sacrifice that for God. I mean, God created us. The least we can do is give him our nose.
Imagine all the beauty creams you could make out of like these little pinky toes of these little babies. I can't believe we're having this discussion.
But then if anybody says that that's ridiculous, we were like, what's the difference between the organ that you chose and the one that we chose? You say you take off the penis, we say we take off a toe. So, but that's your religion. This is our religion.
Yeah, man. I've there's a report
right.
when people talk about
the name of God.
Often they'll say, well, the American Academy of Pediatrics they said that there's some benefits to circumcision over the risks, and I'm like, yeah, unfortunately they did say that, and of course there are a lot of Jewish and Muslim pediatricians out there. I'm just saying that in the industry. However,
none of them is. This is why I don't trust just doctors. No peer-reviewed academic research. This is just
this is all. Well, I mean, I wrote a whole article about it. It's actually by this guy named Morris, who isn't even a pediatrician. He's like a PhD in molecular biology. And he's got a foreskin fetish. But anyway, the response to that is that in 2010, you know what else the American Academy of Pediatrics did? They green-lighted FGM. So there's 4 types of FGM. The female genital mutilation. There's 4 types of it. And one of the types is just a ritual nick, where they just sort of like prick the clitoris. And they said that they should allow this, because if they don't, then parents will take the kids and they're going to do it themselves, and we should allow it in that reason. So they actually agreed, which means that they're not doing this because of evidence-based medicine. They're actually taking they're not doing the peer review stuff. They're actually taking just cultural criteria and doing it. And I should mention that they did, after there was a huge public backlash of this. And if you want to find out about this, Google the New York Times article. Just do American Academy of Pediatrics ritual nicks, New York Times, and if they eventually, for lack of a better term, retracted the recommendation because of the outcry. But that's kind of it's. So it's these academies and these organizations also don't go completely according to science and evidence-based medicine, unfortunately.
Ari, just one last question before we start wrapping up. Isn't it also in the Old Testament? I think you both should notice that David that was told to go get 100 foreskins, and he came up with 200 foreskins instead. And you know, that's Old Testament.
I'm not aware of that. And another thing, we when we learn even the Bible and all the Judaic studies in school, they skip and modify the hell out of it, so we don't even ask questions. So that's even like in Hasidic Judaism.
What's it with Judaism and foreskins? What's our obsession? Like,
I heard the same thing. Why is I saw it somewhere, and I'm sorry if I'm not I'm not giving credit to whoever wrote this, but. I'm not plagiarizing here. I saw it on Facebook. Someone asked, why does God like hats so much? And someone said, why do people think God likes hats so much? The same thing is like, why does like God like foreskins so much? Why do people think that a God would like foreskins so much?
That's true.
We have to see here that a lot of religion, I mean, all of religion is man-made, but a lot of these particular things like foreskins, hats, and all that stuff, it's even just another person came and said, oh, on top of Judaism, we're going to do some foreskin stuff, and we're going to do that.
Well, actually, it's not that, and a lot of things in religion, when people think it's just random nonsense, it's not that random. One thing it could be, it's the survival of the memes, right? Like religion is a meme. And one thing that makes a meme survive more is to tests of loyalty for the people that follow it. And
that's what it was, actually.
It's a test of
loyalty. That was for Abraham. That was the test of loyalty for Abraham.
Right. So what happened with Abraham was that when Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac for you guys, and Ismail for Muslims.
Yeah, it was Ismail. It was different.
Yeah, so what he... Yeah, it was Ismail. It wasn't Isaac.
You guys got it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. So what he did was then when God said at the end, "Oh, LOL, I was just kidding," and whatever. And so he said, "Don't cut prank, off the big head."
That's what he said.
It's a prank, bro. Exactly.
So he's like, so Abraham, God was just kind of punking Abraham, and he said, "Don't cut off the big head, just cut off the little head as loyalty," and that's basically how it started. And later on, when you had these little towns, the rabbinic authorities in these towns. Like what greater pledge of allegiance? They wanted to know that their people were loyal to them, so they'd ask people to cut the foreskins off of their newborn sons. And anybody, as you said, God above family, right?
God above friends, family, and moral values. It's God, and if we have some extra time, we're going to do a little bit of that too. But God is first.
Really poorly written story. God said, "Kill your son." Then he's like, "No, that was a test. Cut off foreskins instead." Everybody. Okay.
Well, I'm obviously fast forwarding, and I'm paraphrasing it a bit. But that's
it's a covenant between God. Yeah. But it's like
Abraham likes
contract. I give you something, you give me something. What are you giving me? This is my promise. In return, I want foreskins. Like, okay. That's a very
I feel like if there is some kind of version of a God, like another alien from a different planet who steered this shit, which I don't believe in, but if there is, hypothetically, that dude is such a prankster and should be awarded his or her own
troll
TV show.
of the, I don't know, what's bigger than Millennium? It's like the biggest trolling operation ever.
Yeah, like the master of trolling award goes to that alien.
Yeah, and persuasive too, Jesus.
So tell us where, so people that want to follow you, what are you up to these days, by the way?
Oh, I'm fighting for education in Hasidic schools, and basically something I was denied. I worked on my education. I got my high school equivalency diploma, and I'm working on my college plans. I want to get a master's in computer science and maybe a couple other minors in related fields.
Oh, wow.
Definitely throwing philosophy in there somewhere. Yeah. I am going to hit a year clean and sober of all drugs, alcohol, nice. Candy, caffeine, cigarettes, and basically everything on March 29th.
Wow.
Yes. No, it's March 21st is when I'm hitting the year for the first time. And actually on my website, reh.me, arih.me, there's a countdown for whoever wants to keep track with me. And I'll also post updates, of course, on Facebook, on my public page and everywhere. And what else am I doing?
When in school, do you feel like these other kids that are getting education and they think that it's a given thing? Do you ever feel like they don't know how lucky they are to get this?
Yeah, I actually asked my teacher, like, how long ago did scientists find out that there's, 100 or whatever, 200 something elements? And my teacher said, well, I don't know. A considerable amount of years ago, and I was like, no, just a few years ago in school I learned that there's only 4. Just so I think you got this wrong. There's only 4. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm educating myself, working on myself, and helping others. Speaking about the issue. I'm joining panels and everything like that about the issue. And then honestly, really, if any of the listeners have some kind of project in which they feel could be helped by this, or some way to raise awareness about this, I'd love to help. You can reach out to my website. So that's basically.
And give me the link. Give me the link to your website so I could put it in the description. And if you're a podcaster or a YouTuber, or if you're an event organizer, Ari I think it would be a fantastic.
Please get him on. Get Ari as much as you can to speak out.
The link is reh.me, like arih.me, pretty easy one to remember.
So, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to have like a little takeaway, but you can ask
No, please do. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Just the takeaway, I think, should be, since this episode is focused mostly around Hasidic Judaism, is that these are not evil people. Evil was done to them. And I think it's the same with a lot of religions. They have been indoctrinated. Most Hasidic people are actually nice people. Take away the religion part. It's like salad is really good if you add pizza and remove the vegetables. So they're nice people, as humans. And like people talk about sexual abuse and all these things. It's not really a widespread, crazy thing that's happening every day. But the response to all of that is a disaster, and that's where my focus is. So these are nice people who had the misfortune of being born in the wrong area.
They're the victims.
At the wrong time, just the wrong. Yes, I see them as victims, and I hope that nobody goes out and hates Hasidic Judaism.
Right.
A lot of people are totally okay being like that and staying like that. I wouldn't even bother those people. They're happy. Why would I bother? And the rest, a lot of people are trying to leave. They need help. They need you to explain to them that Family Guy is a funny TV show and it's worth looking into. They need you to explain to them what tacos are and what Frank Sinatra is. Who Frank Sinatra is. Those people are basically need help and not hate.
So the ones that are happy, I would say I agree that nobody should obviously be forced to content that they don't want to be forced to, but I do think that everybody should know the options that are available, right? Because
definitely, yes.
So even the ones that are happy, I don't think obviously they should have complete control over what they want to see and what they don't want to see, but that control is given to them if they know the options available. That's all.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's why I'm fighting for education so much, is because I want people. I'm not trying to change anyone, but I want people to have options, and not just to leave the community. Have options as a woman like Etty with a better education, could have had a well-paying career. And could have afforded her own lawyers in anything in life. It's always good. Education is always good. Education is one thing that you can't say you have too much of. Knowledge is not a thing that we have too much, and it's a human rights violation to deny kids that.
When you talk about the people rather than the Judaism, the example that is often used is like if we're against cancer, that doesn't mean we're against the cancer patient.
Exactly. Well, I don't know if I would call her a cancer.
I would.
Well, the religion. I would call religion and the notion of God as a cancer, and the extreme version of it definitely a cancer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, with any disease or anything, it's those people need our help, and they need our sometimes I get stuck with it. Still learning English. Basically, they shouldn't get hate for any of this. They are victims and not.
Yeah.
They're the main victims.
Well, they've been indoctrinated to be. Yes, they've been indoctrinated.
Here's what I say. It's like when there's a suicide bombing that happens, and they always like in the news they mention the number of victims. They usually miss one of the victims when they're counting the number of victims, and that's usually the suicide bomber. I always think like you should count the suicide bomber in the total number of victims. In fact, if suicide bomber was a victim to that ideology way before the other ones died. Yeah.
He basically didn't even have a life before he died.
Yeah. This is, and we say this over and over again here. There's a difference, people, between ideologies and people. There's a difference between ideas and people. Ideas don't have rights. Human beings have rights. And, this, I think, Ari, your point, your takeaway couldn't be better. I mean, this is something that we try to say also when we talk about criticizing Islam, that, a lot of us have Muslim family members and Muslim friends that, we know, just like, that your people from the community you grew up in, most of them are good people. And they're just in the circumstance that they were born in. And it's the exact same thing. And that distinction is super important.
That's why I'm always doing I always keep looking back at my past on Instagram. I do every week, every Thursday, I try to do a throwback to when I was really in the community. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see it. It's like, this is how far...
Is it linked to all your social media on your website?
On my website, there's links to my social media.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. Okay.
I always look back and look how far I've come. You can do this too. There's options available. And it's not just about convincing people. It's just about showing people that you may feel stuck now, but as we say at Footsteps, it gets better. Better is the Yiddish word for better. It gets better.
Yeah. And so you mentioned Footsteps, and I want to kind of wrap this up by just talking about my experience. I have met a few people at Footsteps, I think most recently in Detroit at the Muslimish Winter Conference. And Muslimish is an organization that's kind of like Footsteps for people who are questioning Muslims or former Muslims. And they held the event at the Center for Humanistic Judaism in Detroit. And it was a great center. It was a really great community. The audience was amazing. There were people from Footsteps there who I met and who
Any names? Anyone that I know?
I can't remember exactly, but I'll let you know later. I'll follow up with you on that.
Wait, we did not get to the Yasmin texted me questions earlier. We did not get to that.
We did.
You went through some of that?
I actually made sure that we covered 1 and 2. We definitely did. And also the last one was that she wanted to make sure what happened after the documentary. And I think you covered that.
Yes, I'm still flaming loud and proud atheist. I did not go back. I wanted to have that head in the scent peacefulness, but I did not go back.
So you heard a lot of it with Armin. You heard me too. I mean, watching this documentary is it does make you feel like there's a part of it. It is harrowing. There's a lot of it that's very disturbing, and it does make you feel very angry. And I think you probably heard that in this podcast.
People need to see this.
Yeah, but it's so.
Yeah, I felt like throwing things at my screen.
Yeah,
a couple
but it
of
is
times.
so important because it's real and this is happening. And if you're concerned about just the theocratic elements, creeping into, when we talk about creeping Sharia and everything that makes the headlines, I mean, this is stuff that's actually happening, and we should pay attention to it.
This is not even creeping Judaism; it's homegrown Judaism.
Yeah. But Ari, I'm like hugely inspired by you. I mean, you're really young. You had the courage to
same here.
To think for yourself and to think rationally and have conviction in your ideas on the basis of evidence and on the basis of logic and on the basis of what makes sense to you and a clear conscience. And you did this in the most adverse of circumstances when you had so much to lose and you had been through so much. And it's actually really, really inspiring. I think not just to other people from conservative Jewish communities who are listening to this, but probably a lot of the people who are in the Muslim communities who've heard your story. And, I related to it. There's a lot of other people I know who come from backgrounds similar to yours in other religions who relate to it. And
I've had hundreds of people from all over the world, and in total people who reached out after filming over 1,000. So reached out from all over the world on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and just people in just totally different situations who just the story resonated with them. They were the black sheep in whatever way, and they got courage from it.
Yeah, no, and I think as they should, and that's why I think that you should continue speaking out. I think you're very, you're very persuasive. The stuff that you say, you're very articulate, and you really get your point across well. And especially the work that you're doing right now, working for education in Hasidic communities, and hopefully even.
I'm working with Yaffed, and they're doing the work. I'm just helping out.
And a lot of ex-Muslims can relate to your story. I think it was so similar to.
Yeah, a lot of Muslims reached out too.
Yeah.
Muslims and ex-Muslims both.
Yeah.
What did the Muslims say to you?
Well, the Muslims, some of them tried to convince me that I shouldn't dismiss God like that, but a lot of them, I've had some people, I've had the usual of, hating Muslims, being like, you're going to burn in hell and whatever. But there have been surprisingly a few who were actually nice about it.
Do you think and I'm not suggesting all, but do you think some of them has something to do with the fact that this shows that Islam is not the only bad religion that has these experiences, and you're kind of showing that Judaism is like that too?
It could be. They were like, "Hey, there's another bully in the park."
Judaism is like that.
Well, I mean, you're always going to get the opportunists. You're always going to get the, we get that. We get people who are totally anti-Muslim. They want all Muslims deported, and they support me and Armin because they're like, oh, these guys are speaking against Islam, and that's really not what we're about. And just like as you said, you're probably going to get a lot of people who. There'll probably be actual anti-Semites, and they're like, okay, look at this guy. But then you'll come out and you'll be like, listen.
No, I'm still a very proud Jew.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm very proud of my culture. I'm very proud of the nice people. There's a lot of nice Jews and a lot of good people.
Exactly.
I think the religion part is probably crap, but I am still a Jew, and I'm not going to change that. I'm a Jew by race, by tradition, by culture, but not by religion.
Yeah, so I think that's.
It's like someone saying, "I'm an Arab, not a Muslim."
Right. That's
those are two different words. It's easier to say that because it's the confusion is less there because they're separate words.
For me, it would be like, "I'm a Jew, not a Jew."
I know.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, Armin, you had something to say?
Yeah, I forgot.
Okay. Well, that's part of it. Ari, thank you, man. Thank you for coming on, and maybe we'll have you on again.
Thank you for having me.
I would love to. We have a lot of interesting guests coming up.
This is what I'm going to say.
I've listened to a lot of your episodes.
But one thing I was going to say, by the way, a lot of people that follow you for the wrong reason, don't dismiss them, okay? Because, for example, a lot of people that I used to remember that started following me and they said, fuck all Muslims and we should bomb them all. We should just bomb the Middle East. And, I had a lot of followers like that. And I noticed some of them have changed their wording and the way they talk about things. And some of them are saying like, oh no, we're against Islam, not against Muslims. I'm like, wait, you're changing the way you talk about things. So don't.
And that's good. That's why I keep getting my point across. I don't want any anti-Semitism to come out of this. Yeah. People need help.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you notice anti-Semites following you, don't block them. Try to convince them of, if you're trying to convince if there's hope for religious people to come out of religion, there's also hope for racists and bigots to come out of their bigotry.
I try to avoid them in my personal life, but I hope that they're watching and listening to what I'm saying and eventually, open their minds to see and try and see what my point is.
Yeah. Ari, thank you, man. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Go watch the documentary.
It's an honor. I'm a big fan. You're like my atheist rabbi, as I told you in the first message that I sent to you.
Thank you.
Rabbi is probably the wrong word, but
I'll take it.
Like atheist mentor.
That's going to help all the Jewish conspiracy rumors, Armin. Like everybody already thinks that you're Jewish.
Oh yes, now you're officially a rabbi ordained by me. So now when you have anything to, anybody calls you an anti-Semite, you're like, hey, I'm rabbi.
I'm going to introduce you as Rabbi
Armin said that.
from here onwards.
That's sweet. Thank you.
That's going to be great. So, that's great. Everybody, thank you for joining us. We have some great guests coming up in the future. We know we have, so far we'll be talking to David Silverman. In the future, we will be actually on...
another atheist Jew. Another
atheist Jew, and he's the president of American Atheists, so...
I look forward to listen. The president of American Atheists in New York City, or...
Oh,
wait, I'm supposed to go to American Atheist Con. I'm sort of too broke, but I think I'm working on a plan to get to American Atheist Con.
Yeah, you should. He's awesome. He's got a book called Fighting God, and we'll be speaking to him later on in the month. Before that, actually, he's
actually very sweet in person. I met him in London.
Yeah, and I actually want to have one thing that I'm really interested in is there was the highest ranking American in ISIS. His name is John Georgelis. His ex-wife, Tanya Joya, she's going to be joining us. We'll be interviewing her, and this is wow. So that's going to be quite a conversation. As well, so be on the lookout for it. Follow us at Secular Jihadist without the S, and you'll get information about all these upcoming episodes.
What does the S stand for? Did you have to remove it?
I don't know. Apparently, it didn't fit, or something was going on, which is weird.
Twitter was like, no, you can't. No plural.
Was it Satan? That you didn't like? You had to remove the S.
I don't know.
Twitter basically like we can't handle one.
Or is it sin? I think you don't like sin.
I think we are. We have a Satan. Like Armin is Satan. I am sin. I mean, there's we're right here. I don't know who's pulling the strings. Maybe it's just Mossad or the Illuminati. Who knows? I'll check to see how many
I think we're going to lose our Zionist after this episode. We're going to lose all our Zionist support.
Yeah, we could.
And keep a close eye on your shoes.
I will. Yeah, everybody, all you Muslim imams in the UK, remember, Mossad might be looking out for your shoe. So we'll end it there, man. Ari, thank you. Right. Armin, thank you.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me.
The secular jihadists have been made possible thanks to the Illuminati and the covert support of Israel and the CIA. That's what we have been told, but we haven't received our checks yet. If you like what we do, please support us. Share the podcast with your friends. Write and tweet us with topic and guest suggestions. Or head over to secularjihadist.com and give $1 or more for exclusive access to live video. Have your questions read and answered on the air and more. Till next time, may the flying spaghetti monster be with you.